Next, I'll invite up Seth Cooler from Massachusetts to introduce our next awardee.
So tonight it's my privilege, my honor, to present an award of thanks to my Senator Markey for the work that he's been doing over the last decades around the issues that we are all We all benefit from his persistent and committed work. Senator Markey has been in the forefront of two critical issues facing life on this planet: climate change and nuclear weapons. Nuclear issues, both related to weapons and power, have had his attention for decades. When I was in college, I listened to then Representative Markey give a speech in New York about the nuclear freeze campaign. His proposed legislation related to dry cask storage of nuclear waste, the decommissioning of nuclear power plants. Has introduced legislation to restrict money for new nuclear weapons and their delivery systems and developments. Through these efforts, he touches us all. His more recent efforts in Congress to limit the first use of nuclear weapons is another example of what he's been doing for decades. And really, that's all about reducing the threat of nuclear war. He's encouraged nuclear arms control of the Soviet Union, standing down with the MX missile, preventing funding and testing of the Star Wars system, taking nuclear weapons off air trade alert, cutting short the rhetoric about nuclear war and the use of nuclear weapons in response to non-nuclear threats. As I'm sure we'll hear more about directly from him in a moment, the latest move in this ongoing drama is to eliminate what I would think would be better as a plot in a surrealist tragedy. It's investing in a single person with power to launch an attack. So it's my honor to present this award to my senator, Senator Markey.
This award, and I know that you are not a well-funded group, and the expense you gave to this award reflects that. But it is not in any way something that reduces what it's invaluable to me, because you are who I have been fighting with as a partner. That's right. Since the first day I walked into this building as a congressman. You don't know what this means to me. And you know, we've got William Lloyd Garrison on our mind, and you know, another Massachusetts guy from Newburyport, who said, "With reasonable men I will reason, with humane men I will plead, but to tyrants I will show no quarter." What you do is to provide the grassroots. You are the grassroots that is growing on a daily basis across this country. That will be the revolution at the polling booths of our country this November, because you know the insanity of what is now happening in our country. They are trying to put Yucca Mountain back into business. They're applying electrodes like it's a Frankenstein to try to bring it back to life. And I was on the committee here when they selected Yucca as the site. And I will tell you, it had nothing to do with science. It had everything to do with political science, just picking a location, regardless of the earthquake fault, regardless of the river nearby, regardless of whether or not it would ever be constructed. But it didn't make any difference whether $10 billion would be wasted or $20 billion, because the nuclear industry wanted a place to bury this stuff and to move it across our country in trucks from every location. Mobile Chernobyls just moving through our country, you know, regardless of what the dangers on the streets of our nation might be. And so here we are now, back on the on the floor where I made all the amendments against Yucca Mountain. And what I did in 1995, right after Newt Gingrich took over and they once again tried to revive it, you know, I looked to the Gershwin brothers for inspiration. And with apologies to them, it's very clean. Plutonium is here to stay. Not for a year, but forever and a day. The Rockies may tumble, Yucca may crumble, they're only made of clay, but plutonium is here to stay. Say we don't need any more. We don't need any more of this dangerous material to be constructed in the plant. And so I thank all of you for having me here for this award ceremony, which means more to me than you can ever know. And my dear friend Barbara Lee, who is going to receive an award this evening. She and I were separated at birth when it comes to nuclear issues. To Susan Gordon, congratulations for your incredible work. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. Terry Lodge, thank you for everything that you have done, a lawyer's analysis, dissecting, you know, the insanity of all of the lies that have been perpetrated about nuclear technology throughout the years. And our grassroots activist of the year, Bill Mitchell. So we thank you, Bill, because you represent the millions of people across the country who cannot be here today, but are ready to do the fighting. All right? So congratulations for everything that you have done. So I've worked in this building beginning 42 years ago as someone in partnership with you to advance a nuclear non-proliferation agenda for our country. 35 years ago, I wrote a book, Nuclear Peril, The Politics of Proliferation, that just showed how all of the slimy little deals get cut that ensure that nuclear power plants will be built without full-scope safeguards that allow plutonium and uranium to be used by countries around the world to construct nuclear weapons that they should never have had access to the material in the first place. And I wrote in that book that by the 21st century, we may be asking not who has the bomb, but who doesn't have the bomb. Well, in 2018, that list is the United States, China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, India, Israel, and Pakistan, and the newest entry, North Korea. Clearly, our work together on stopping the spread of the world's deadliest weapon is as important as it has ever been.
That's right.
But because of activism around the planet, we still have a relatively short list of countries that we are working hard to ensure does not expand any further than it has already. The Trump administration has reversed decades of our U.S. leadership towards a nuclear weapons-free world. In its nuclear posture review issued earlier this year, the administration lays out plans for a new nuclear arms race. President Trump, who has threatened other countries with fire and fury, wants new, more usable nuclear weapons. He wants a so-called low-yield submarine-launched ballistic missile. Low-yield nuclear weapon. That's like an oxymoron, like jumbo shrimp or Salt Lake City nightlife. I mean, there is no such thing. A low-yield nuclear weapon is a contradiction in terms. are they talking about? Where do you use that nuclear weapon? He has laid out more instances when we might use these weapons, like against a significant non-nuclear strategic attack. That sounds like a cyber attack to me. Does anyone in this room really think it's a good idea to threaten a nuclear response to a cyber attack on the United States? That moment in history where we use nuclear weapons to respond to a cyber attack will make every other issue that we are debating here in this building a footnote in history. Because all history will be measured from that moment where a nuclear weapon is used in response to a cyber attack. So we are at a turning point here in the United States, and at the same time, our lack of non-proliferation leadership abroad is equally concerning. We have pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal, a deal that was doing exactly what it was designed to do, to verifiably ensure Iran could not get a nuclear weapon. And simultaneously, the Trump administration is negotiating a civil nuclear cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia, whose top leaders have made clear they are willing to pursue nuclear weapons if they think it is necessary for them to counter Iran. And by the way, the Trump administration seems so eager to reach a deal that it may not require the gold standard or a commitment from Saudi Arabia not to enrich or reprocess nuclear materials that can be used in nuclear bombs. We've also failed to substantially engage Russia in meaningful discussions about how to continue reducing our respective nuclear weapons arsenals, the most dangerous in the world. We haven't announced even our intent to extend by 5 years the New START Treaty and its critical caps on deployed strategic nuclear weapons and delivery systems. We have unwisely responded to Russia's non-compliance with its Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty by immediately threatening to pursue our own intermediate range missiles. What sense does that make, that more missiles is a response rather than a negotiation to reduce the incredible tensions that are building between the United States and Russia? And in North Korea, President Trump has gone from threatening to totally destroy the entire country to being so eager to make a deal that many of us worry he will forget what exactly a deal must include. Of course, I support diplomacy of any kind, but the last 4 presidents have concluded framework agreements to address the threat from North Korea's nuclear program. They have all fallen apart, and the danger posed by North Korea's nuclear program has continued to progress. There is much to cause dismay, but this is a place we have been before. But President Trump wants to unretire old weapon systems like the B-83 megaton gravity bomb and the sea-launched cruise missiles, then we will unretire the movement activists that put more than 1 million people in Central Park to the nuclear freeze movement in May of 1983. I was the only politician allowed to speak to that 1 million people that day in Central Park, and it was because I had introduced the nuclear freeze resolution in the House of Representatives, and absolutely amazing, this building, we had gone from no co-sponsors on March 1st of 1982 to my having 200 co-sponsors by June of 1982. Because the grassroots rose up in this country to say, with all of the common sense that is imaginable, that the problem with the nuclear arms race is the nuclear arms race. It's the very mentality that drives the entire insanity of more nuclear weapons, making the world a safer place to live. So we need a movement to join with Congressman Ted Lieu and me in support of our nuclear no first use bill that says no American president, especially President Donald Trump, should be able to unilaterally launch nuclear weapons without provocation, without consultation, without warning, and without the United States having been attacked with the to stand up to the Trump administration and its gold-plated defense industry allies looking to build more bombs and demand that we invest in, instead that we invest in more education, not invest in annihilation. That's why I have introduced legislation that would cut $100 billion from our bloated nuclear weapons. We need this movement to call out the Trump administration's nuclear modernization effort for what it is, nothing more than a budgetary boondoggle that will not add anything to the defense of the United States of America. In fact, it will make us less safe because our enemies, our adversaries will become more fearful, more likely that they keep the finger on their buttons that could trigger an accidental nuclear war. That is what Donald Trump is driving us inexorably, inevitably, and eventually towards in this country and on this planet. And we need this movement to ensure that diplomacy, above all else, is the watchword of our efforts in North Korea. If the talks between President Trump and Kim Jong-un do not go well, it is not an excuse to justify military action for a situation that has no military solution. A second Korean War is absolutely unacceptable if Donald Trump We have an obligation to the American families, service members, and our allies to say unequivocally that we did everything in our power to curb North Korea's dangerous behavior without resorting to armed conflict. This is the time. You are the people. In my book, Nuclear Peril, I wrote, nuclear proliferation is a problem too long ignored. Now, before it is too late, the public must draw the line. The stakes are too high. You are that public. And the stakes for our planet have never been higher. We're going through a funny period in America right now. We're nostalgia for a time that never existed has replaced the idealism that we need to deal with the problems of our country and our planet. But for the poor and the sick and the elderly, the past is just a memory. The future is their hard reality. And we cannot squander funding on nuclear weapons, on nuclear programs, on nuclear repositories that we do not need, and instead steal that money from the mouths of children who need a food stamp program, of elderly who need care in nursing homes. We cannot make that choice in good conscience, which is why I am so proud to be here with you. Because the least that we should be able to say, if a nuclear war does break out in North Korea, is that we tried. We really tried to avoid that catastrophe. And that's why I'm so proud of you, because you are on the forefront. Thank you for everything.